Come on, Max.
Yeah, let's go!
Ball!
Fuck yeah!
You are here with the Hugh Hefner of podcasting, except I'm poor and aggressively monogamous. And I have the luxury of speaking with Max Shethar, the strongest little brother in Montana, and the true host of Large Lads Podcast.
A brutal title, but the strongest little brother, that's devastating.
Well, it is devastating to think that you're a 500-pound bencher now, and you're not the strongest bencher in the house.
That's get out there by 100 pounds. Isn't that, yeah, I'm still a full 100 ahead of me.
Sickening.
Yeah, truly brutal.
But it seems like the deadlift race is pretty close. I mean, you're pulling on a stiff bar with mixed grip, though the mustache is probably multi-ply. I have to point that out.
That's true. A very untested facial hair choice. Absolutely. Yeah, I would say deadlift is pretty neck and neck, and then I got the lead on the squat.
Yeah.
But that bench is pretty hard to get over.
Yeah. Well, you're pausing yours, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's that. But yeah.
I would say Sam and my bench is not too different of a standard. My 500 was a bit of a jumpy pause.
Fair enough.
His 600 was a little bit of a jumpy pause, I would say, if not slightly touch and go. But
I mean, also, 4 years younger.
Yeah. 5.
Yeah. So there's that, yeah, and you compete natural, so you are natural. Yeah. So there's that too. Yeah. I think I see 600 could be incoming for you in a future.
Yeah, it'll definitely take me a long time. Bench is definitely. It feels very silly to say now as a 500-pound bencher that bench has been a slog, but it really has felt like it.
Yeah,
I've gone like a full year without hitting a bench PR before. I think twice.
Yeah, and I guess it's always comparative, right? Because it seems like your squat has steadily improved. Your deadlift has always been a standout, right? Yeah. So
proportionally, obviously, yeah. It's always funny to say like I have a poverty bench as a 500-pound bencher, but
yeah, please don't say that.
Yeah.
What a privileged viewpoint.
Yeah. How much better is that? Because I have a bunch of pairs of headphones and I didn't know what mic would be best.
That is crystal clear. The voice is sounding luxurious. So
okay. I knew I had a pair of Dave & Buster's headphones. I was like, I bet the mic is not great.
Okay, wait. So did you win the headphones from Dave & Buster's?
Yeah.
Okay, what was the strategy to win them? What did you have to play?
So it was like my girlfriend was like, I haven't been to a Dave & Buster's ever. So we were like back in Seattle. I was like, all right, let's do it.
Shelter.
And then the bowling game for some reason was set up so it was like how hard you threw the ball correlated to how many pins.
Oh wow!
So I could just max it out every time.
Yeah.
And I got a blue pair of headphones out. Not a great one, but I think I got a pair of headphones.
Oh, good. The cameo of the water chug, the famous.
Oh, I take it everywhere with
water jug. Perfect. Yeah. What are you getting in? You do 2 liters a day, or I mean, 2 of those jugs.
So this would be 3.78 liters.
Oh wow! Okay.
That's a full gallon, but honestly, it's like a little bit intuitive. Like.
Yeah.
Some days it's more, some days it's less. Especially with Montana, it's like snowing today. It was hot yesterday, so I definitely drank more water yesterday than I probably will do today.
You fluctuate. Yeah. Intuitive drinking. Almost intuitive eating.
Yeah.
That's the new market. You've set several world records. And by several, I mean, I think it's somewhere between 2 and 3.
It's all age records, so I don't keep track of them as well as I. In my mind, like valuing those less is maybe a little arbitrary, but also I think it's better to like keep that longer term picture because I think it's a real trap for younger lifters to like get really focused on like teen records. I think that can kind of lead you astray. But I think my only meaningful claim to fame in my mind was at the time I was the youngest person to pull 800. Since then, that's been beaten a bunch of times, but at the time, youngest person to touch 800 raw in competition.
You lift with this kind of primal aggression that I really appreciate.
I got a comment on one of the reposts that was like, "That celebration, that guy's clearly untested." Where I was like, the level of excitement had to be enhanced.
Yeah. What a great barometer to judge someone's natty status. Yeah, if you're natty, you just need to be cold, RPE 6 running Shako all the time.
If I
Just a
don't, yeah, if I
robot.
don't do the Mike T like neutral faced fist bump and then walk away.
Right, yeah. You've got to adjust your celebration. You might get red
Yeah,
lighted for it.
yeah. I mean, I've gotten drug tested a lot of meets, and I think part of that is my excessive celebration.
So your last meet was Sin City last August in Nevada.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is something I really admire about you as such a young and successful lifter. You're very patient, it seems like,
Mhm.
in your progression, and you're giving yourself room to improve, and you're still growing into the weight class, we could say. So what do you have on the calendar if you're comfortable talking about it?
Honestly, I have nothing on the calendar at the moment.
Yeah.
Sam and I kind of like went back to the drawing board, if you will, to like kind of hash out what the game plan was. And there's like a couple things that I feel like we've identified as like deficiencies that we
Okay.
want to like get fixed up before I compete again. So probably I'll compete in the next 6 months if I was to guess, but nothing official yet.
Got it.
And I think a lot of that patience is also just having an older brother and a coach because I'd be lying if I said when I was like 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, that I wasn't super, like there weren't times that I was like very, very like, we have to go all out for this one, like give it
Yeah.
all. And he's like, all right, or we could not and have a way better performance in a year to 6 months or like
Yeah.
set yourself up better for the future. So I think that's definitely been a lot of guidance from being an arrogant teenager.
So do these periods between competitions, are you mostly running hypertrophy phases, or do you kind of cycle through strength and hypertrophy phases?
Honestly, I run 11-week blocks that are the exact same for competition prep, just over and over. So
Okay.
a comp prep and the off season are kind of the same. Right now, I'm running like a double volume block, so it's going to be like 2.5 months of volume. But usually, it would just be 11 or 12 week blocks stacked on top of each other. The obvious difference being that I take a deload for competitions and I don't take a deload in the gym. I just max out the next week and then go back to regular scheduled training.
Got it. Yeah, without kind of tapering into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you doing this thing that Sam advocates where it's like you're just looking for those 5-10 pound PRs every cycle?
Yeah, that's generally the goal. I usually how it works is at the beginning of the goal, I set some extremely lofty, massive PR, and then over the course of the block, Sam and I kind of hash out far more realistic attempts.
Uh,
Where I'm always like, I'm gonna go for a 30-pound PR, and he's like, okay.
yeah.
And then on like week 2, he's like, all right, based on your training, you're gonna do 5 to 10 pound PR. And I'm like, all right, that makes sense.
Yeah. So you were like after that 822 deadlift, you were like 880 next motherfuckers. And Sam was like, why don't we try 835?
Yeah, that is
Okay.
a very yeah for sure. I was calling like, dude, 9 plates is coming, and he was like, how about we do a 35?
Yeah, yeah. So why does he give you so much shit for your low bar technique? Because the Psychic guys like cream themselves over it. But when I talked to Sam, he said that you're still tweaking some stuff with your squat.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is like someone who is like very involved in the process. Like Sam and I can look at my technique and immediately see like here's like the 8 things I'm doing wrong. But also that's because there's been like a course of 10 years of adjusting like technical minutia to get here. So it's like if you're comparing someone who's never squatted before to me, I have 10 years more experience, but also to me and Sam, it's still like that's not as good as we want. Um, and my squat's just been looking janky. I don't know. That's definitely like very narrow perspective of like when I look at my squat, I'm like, there's something wrong.
Yeah. So if you could get, if there are there like 2 or 3 things that you could point to that you're actively trying to correct with your squat?
Yeah, so I previously was setting my hands on top of the catches to unrack, but I'm now moving them in and it's kind of messing with my upper back tightness. So I'm trying to find a good balance between like having a tight upper back, but also doing a good job bracing down, having like my rib cage down into like a proper brace because I either lean into like over hyperextended my squat or over rounded to have a better brace and finding a better balance between those two. Um, I've also got a bad habit of my squat stance will kind of drift towards wider with my toes straight forward. And we're trying to lean away from that a little bit. I would say those are probably the two biggest ones right now. My upper body mechanics, so like my brace and my upper back tightness right now, are kind of the main focus. I think my lower body mechanics generally are decent.
Are you doing it? Are you doing any warm-up drills or kind of core work to address that, or is it just something you're thinking about while you're under the bar squatting?
So I would do lat pull downs like behind my neck in my warm ups. I've been doing that since I've been trying to figure out my and I've been doing more upper body mobility before squats. And I always warm up with planks. But there's a certain amount of like, if the muscle is adequately warm, I'm not going to be able to like trick myself into using it more. I feel like it was something when I was like a little bit younger in my lifting career, I could just warm something up more and I would have a better feeling for it. But it's become a lot more of like sitting there and just like trying to convince myself to do something right over and over until I actually do it.
That's good. So you're just like sitting on a 12-inch box with your eyes closed, muttering to yourself, basically.
Honestly, yeah. I do just actively talk to myself at the gym. It's probably a weird habit of mine, but I'll just be like, all right, brace down, back tight, 2-step walk out. Like I was like, I truly am just muttering to myself random cues.
Have you ever seen that soundboard? You can find it. It's like a Google away, but it's a soundboard of like Dave Tate sound bites cueing people.
I have not. That sounds very, yeah.
Oh, it's so good. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and impersonate him, but it's very worth checking out. Sometimes I'll play that, not so much to be productive, but just for the entertainment value when I'm warming up.
Maybe it'll seep into your mind too. That
Yeah,
you need to
that's
attack
right.
the bar more.
Right. Yeah, yeah. A lot of the cues are obviously not applicable to the way that I squat as a raw squatter, but still entertaining. And leg extensions in your mind are the only necessary squat accessory. Explain that viewpoint.
It's so funny because that's leg extensions aren't the only leg accessory I do. I do
Yeah,
leg
I was totally just being facetious, but yeah.
I always think that's the funny because I'm so willing to die on that hill. But those are like not what I'm actually doing a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually don't have them in the program right now because I'm training at home right now.
Wow. Okay.
So a little bit sacrilegious to
Yeah.
go on this leg extension crusade and then abandon them. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's really good to just get like it's the tricep extension of the lower body in my mind. And if someone's saying like you don't need to be doing tricep extensions, it's like why wouldn't you be doing them?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. So at home, I mean, you've got a sick garage gym setup,
Yeah,
but you don't have like a belt squat or a leg press, right?
we have a belt squat.
Is that your like main accessory for squat?
Yeah. Right now I'm doing squat and then belt squat and then good mornings and then abs and calves. So
Nice.
that's what my like right now.
Good mornings are you feel like that's better for somebody who squats low bar than high bar as an accessory?
I think it's more like I like because I know a lot of people who squat high bar that folding over is still their issue.
Okay.
So it's more so identifying like the symptom rather than like because like a lot of low bar guys fold over too much. And it's like strengthening that range of motion, but it's like if that's not the thing you're failing on, if you're failing in your legs, like your legs are the thing that's buckling, that should probably be the greater emphasis in your accessories.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I love the belt squat. I just switched gyms. Well, I didn't switch gyms. I got a second gym membership, which was
classic, yeah.
financially irresponsible, but they have strongman stuff I've been playing with. And I tried their belt squat today, and it feels so weird. The place where I'd normally go has this amazing belt squat. And it's like when I'm training there, there's nothing I could do that doesn't involve a barbell that would be more useful to my squat. But at this other place, it's weird because at the other place they have I just tried the leg press today because I was squatting over there, and I'm not normally a leg press fan, but something about like the fucking curve of force or whatever, the YouTube geniuses would call it, is just right, man, and it fucked up my legs.
Well, that's the thing with belt squats is I think it's a real hit or miss. Like my gym has a
Yeah.
belt squat, and I don't use it because whatever brand it is, I just like it does like it is just terrible for me.
Yeah,
But the Rogue Rhino or whatever it is, that thing I've got a lot of love for. It's also like I think you can do belt squats in a way that make them more or less productive. Like a
totally.
lot of people turn them into a like a Hatfield where they're like, is it a Hatfield that you're pulling yourself
Yeah,
up?
yeah, you're
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah. Where I'm like, all right, so you're making the easy or the hardest part of the lift really easy by just yanking yourself out of the bottom. So I try to avoid that, but yeah, no, you
Yeah.
can definitely like the level of productivity within the same motion can be very drastically different.
When I'm tempted because I'm tired to put a few more fingers on there, I always tell myself, why don't you just do one set that's really hard without helping yourself? And then that would be better than doing 3 sets where you're leaning on the bar, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Especially
And then
because
I
you're
do
like
3 sets
yourself.
anyway, but yeah.
Well, especially because like you always lean towards helping yourself in the range of motion that's most productive. So like you're
Mhm.
you're you're stealing yourself of the most valuable like range of motion too.
Yeah, I think the best cue that I've given myself for accessories is make it harder. Like, and that applies to everything for accessories, you know, because when
Yeah.
we're setting up for the competition lifts, I mean, we're kind of thinking the opposite way, like be efficient, you know, which is a euphemism for make it easier.
Yeah.
Though sometimes getting it, maintaining that position is actually harder, but it's easier in the sense of it allows you to lift efficiently, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah, for accessories, you got to undo that a little bit, I think.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Where it's like, I'm not trying to like maximally do the most weight I can on a stiff leg, even if it's like, it'll look 90% passable. Like Instagram would give me the thumbs up. It's like, if I
Yeah.
know I can do this and keep, I think like weight off the bar, it's probably worth it. And I think Sam and I have talked about as we've gotten stronger, that's become a lot more of a like a need or like a necessity because like if you're less advanced athlete, it's like doing some like kind of ego lifting, quote unquote, slanging weights that like are proportionately larger. He's just getting you generally stronger. Like
Sure.
certainly technique and range of motion and
Yeah.
feeling the muscle, all very good things. But like as I've gotten stronger, it's like the amount of like extra energy I have after doing like whatever like 660 for 4 on squats is way less than it was when it was like
Yeah.
360 for 4. And so it's like being more efficient with my energy after a top set has become a lot more important. Where it's like if I can get the same work out of doing a 3 plate RDL as I can out of a 5 plate RDL, it's like I'm going to use the less weight.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. RDLs are so tricky too, because like there's a really fine line where you are between having an effective set and just getting sloppy, and then you're taking it out of your hamstrings and your, you know, ass, and it just you kind of lose the you take your eye off the ball, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, RDLs and stiff legs are definitely one that like two people can be saying the same exercise and they're talking about two absolutely different things.
Yeah,
There's like two people who can RDL 4 plates. One might be an 800-pound deadlifter and one might be a 550-pound deadlifter because it's like one is just doing like a shortened range of motion deadlift and the other one is doing like a deep hamstring off a deficit like with no belt. Like the gap
yeah,
between those is huge. And like,
yeah.
you know, both can be absolutely effective, but it's also like the terminology is definitely slightly vague.
Yeah, yeah, there's a great gray area. And I agree with you that it's not even visible a lot of times. You know, if you're watching it, you can't see the difference, but you can feel the difference, you know,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. Do you do a lot of stiff legs as an accessory for deadlifts?
Yeah, that's my main accessory for deadlifts right now. Is
Nice.
I guess they're RDLs because I don't tap the floor, but I'm
Hmm.
also off a deficit.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So the plates are like floating
Yeah,
basically anyway.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, do you do those after deadlifts or on a separate day?
After deadlifts.
Okay, nice. Yeah, because I used to do my stiff legs as like after squats because I just thought, well, you know, I'm gonna be fresher for them than if I did them after deadlifts. But I've actually found recently that for whatever reason, I get more out of stiff legs after I do deadlifts. And maybe it's just because I don't warm up enough for them before I do them after squats. But yeah, I like doing them. I like the Ed Cohen deadlift day, you know, some
Mhm.
stiff legs, some barbell rows. It's just that's jock mode, man.
Yeah,
To
it's
use your
definitely
term. Yeah.
it's putting some meat on you. It feels like it's just like it's hard and productive. And certainly your training shouldn't be judged solely by like what's difficult, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's like this feels productive and hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, I just found that if I do like hard, heavy RDLs after my squats, I'm usually not recovered enough to have like a like equally productive deadlift day. So it's like it's better to absolutely torch my posterior chain on one day and then have what feels like 5 days to recover rather
Yeah.
than having a 3 day period. That used to be different too back when I was less advanced.
Mhm.
I like had a day where it was like 2 days after I deadlift, I do high bars and RDLs, and then 2 days after that I'd squat. And I do hamstrings on that day too. And it's just like as I've gotten stronger, my ability to recover from equal percentages has definitely gone down.
Yeah. That's a lot of work in a week there, uh, with kind of axial loading too. So now do you have like a squat day and a deadlift day, and those are your two lower body focus days of the week?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then are you doing 3 upper body days?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like that seems to be a commonality among a lot of really strong power lifters is,
Mhm.
obviously you can press more frequently, it's less of a systemic kind of load. But just when you're getting up to the kind of weights you're horsing I mean, even Joey Flex, Joey Franzo, who coaches a lot of USAPL guys, he, I think, has one squat session a week and that's it, and he doesn't even do like squat accessories after deadlifts. It's just that day. And he's so beat up after it, he doesn't bench the next day either.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's like a little bit of like a what is that person doing now versus what got them there. Like I think doing
Yeah.
3 lower body days a week was absolutely like the right choice and
Mhm.
very productive for me. But I just eventually hit like a wall where it was like very specifically I had a competition prep and it was like I felt like I checked every box. I ate all my meals. I did everything. Like I was going really hard and it was just like not the day I expected, I guess.
Yeah.
And Sam and I were like because very often if a block goes bad, I will just come to Sam like, hey, this is my bad. Here's what I did wrong. I will fix it for next block. Like we don't need to have a program like there's no programming error that led to this. I just wasn't sleeping as well as I should have. I wasn't eating my meals consistently. Like most bad blocks are on me. Like very rarely is it on the block or the programming needs to make like some massive change. But that one was like this was weird. We had like I did what I was supposed to, and the result was drastically different. Um, and it was like truly, I just was under recovering. Like it was like just doing, squats, deadlifts, and then I had like a hard pause squat and then RDL session. We just dropped that session. The next block was drastically more
Yeah.
productive. Um, but yeah, no, I think doing 3 lower body days a week for the first whatever 7 years of my training career was definitely the right move.
Is bench in your primary slot for all 3 of those days, or do you have like an overhead day?
It's rotated right now. I have 2 comp benches and 1 tempo bench.
Okay, got it. Is that like your number one accessory, or are you doing it to address like a specific deficiency right now?
Kind of to address a specific deficiency right now.
Okay.
My control at maximal weights has kind of been like slightly dubious. So we've just been trying like I'll be doing like 3 plates for volume, and then I'll go do like a 430 single on my tempo day. So like the weights are very different, just because we
Yeah,
found getting in those heavier touches on the tempo days make them way more productive.
that makes sense. Yeah, I saw you horsing 335 for sets of 10 in that rack the other day.
Yeah, I'm way worse at benching out of our home gym, so I was pretty stoked
Really?
on that. Yeah, way worse.
Yeah. That's impressive because I just thought, I mean, I guess for a 500-pound bench or whatever, I saw the like qualifications Sam left. But to me, I'm thinking 335 for volume, controlled volume, that's pretty fucking impressive.
Yeah, it's definitely weird. I feel like every time I've hit like a new milestone, I'm like, this is the volume phase that'll finally feel impressive. And it
Yeah.
never does. Because like I
Yeah.
used to start at like whatever, like less than a plate for volume. And I was like, once I'm starting at a plate, it'll be cool. And then once I start at 2 plates, it'll be cool. And
Uh,
volume never feels cool. It's
yeah.
less than I can do, so it feels lame. Even though like there was a long time in which I would pray to bench 335.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really disheartening to come off of like a strength phase and go back to tens. And then you have an idea of what you want your starting weight to be. And maybe it's not, uh, related to what you started with last time. And then you're always, and it usually has to do with like an increment of how many plates are on there, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
The
For
first
me,
2 weeks, I just ignore the numbers. Like they're
yeah.
so bad. Usually, like my squat set will be 100 pounds below what I can do. Like
Wow.
the first week or two
Yeah.
is terrible, and then it catches back up to normal. I think it's just because like the difference in volume. Like truly, my legs are just not prepared to do sets of 9 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first 2 weeks just always go terrible, but. Is it really going terrible if it's just the normal and it leads me to be better than I was the past time? But it does
Yeah, it's
not
just
feel good.
yeah, it's just I mean, maybe that is related to the fallacy of like testing instead of training. It's not the same thing, but it's like you're expecting a certain performance in a block that's not actually about the performance. I mean, it is to some extent, like you do want to eventually hit volume PRs, but the volume PRs are in the interest of getting you to the end of the block in a place to like hit a new PR for a single, right? So it's like
Yeah.
it really isn't relevant what path you take to get there as long as that path gets you that extra 10 pounds at the end or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the testing, not training, does also apply to volume. Where like, is the goal to do a new maximal set of 7, or is the goal to prepare myself to do a new personal best single?
Yeah.
Because like there are blocks where I won't hit a single volume PR and I'll end up with a PR at the end of the block just because like the quality or like the sets or whatever aspect has meant that like even a lower numbers proportionally like it's less than I did last time
Yeah.
still set me up to do more. Because like if I was doing a maximal set of 7, I would probably do like a deload and I would only do 7s,
Yeah.
and then I would like, really push past like a really ugly set. And that's not gonna prepare me absolute bet like the best possible way for doing a best single, even though it's my new best set of 7.
Yeah. I think it could get tricky with in the other direction too, because like you'll have somebody who does a set of 10, but it's really a cluster set, and it's like they do 5 and they're doing breathing squats, right? And then they do 2, and then they do 2, and then they do 1. And they're like, well, you know, a 10 rep max is 75% of a 1 rep max. So like they calculate like these inflated numbers for what they should be hitting at the end of the block. But it's like, no, man, that wasn't a true set of 10. Like it was a rest pause.
Yeah, especially when you're like changing how you do a lift to fudge like getting that extra PR.
Yeah.
Where it's like so like it's not under the same conditions, so it's not the same thing.
Right.
But yeah, no, absolutely. Like extrapolating out from like a 10 and being like, I deserve to hit X number is a trap that I've seen a lot of people fall into. I guess also including myself. Like I've never been good at reps, but like proportionally, this led to that. So this has to lead to that. And then I'm doing like a way worse job and it was way harder. And my lockout was super dubious.
Maybe we should rewind it a little bit in this last half of the podcast. I know the lore because I'm a dedicated Large Lads listener, but for the viewers,
I can tell what you have for a jacket.
Of course, yeah, 100%. I am exactly what you expect for your viewership, I think.
Oh, I will say I feel like the average Large Lads viewer is pretty cool.
Yeah, you know, yeah. How did Sam drag you in the gym, and why did you stay?
The whole like, oh, Sam dragged me into the gym is a little bit of like I think it's just a funny answer to give.
Sure, okay.
But does also have some reality to it. I feel like I was a very like angsty teenager, or I guess I was a tween, like an 11-year-old. And like I definitely like had a lot of angst, and I didn't like I wanted to be someone who had something they were good at, but I truly didn't, and I had no work ethic. But like I desperately wanted to have like an identity, I guess. And so I would like beg Sam, like, just take me to the gym with you, and he'd be like, okay, you have to wake up for it on time. And I'm like, all right, and then I wouldn't, and then I would just be like, oh, I hate myself. There was a period of time where Sam and I were going to the gym before school, so like we were waking up at like 5 in the morning.
Yeah,
and I have never been like an early riser. And that is where the wakey eggs and bakey stick came from, which is Sam had a dowel that he would come just like hit my shins with if I wouldn't get up. And this became like very contentious because I started like putting pillows on my shins because I knew he was gonna come whack my
To
shins.
prepare, yeah.
And then he just yanked them and hit me in the shins. So there was a little bit of actual coercion of getting me in the gym, but also I would beg him like, please, please, please take me to the gym with you. I need to be jacked. And then I would actively sleep in and ignore him when he told me to get ready. So I would say I definitely deserved it.
Yeah, well, who you are at 4:45 a.m. is not the same person that you are at 4:45 p.m., I think. That's true of everybody.
I'm a far, far worse human being overall, I would say.
Yeah.
So Sam eventually successfully was beating my shins enough that I was going to the gym with him in the mornings. I think that Sam dragged me to the gym does undersell the fact that I did like actively plead with him to take me with him. Because like,
fair enough.
I was 11 and he was like a 15-year-old getting into the gym. It's not like you wanted like to force his little brother to come with him to the gym. Like he was like, you have to. I was like, please.
So well, that's an important correction.
Yeah, well, it seems unwilling whenever I see I got dragged in there.
Yeah,
but it was like I would beg him to drag me in there, and then he would be like, "Okay, fine." And then if there was a long time where I was just maxing out my bench and then not doing accessories and leaving.
Bulgarian method.
A very early adopted Bulgarian for sure. And then I guess I eventually just started, like said, I just kept going, and I was like, it really sucks to do something every day and be bad at it. And I think that eventually slowly led to me doing like a slightly better job. And then just over time that like evolved. And I think the thing that kind of drew me in was that one, I just like kind of arbitrarily decided like I'm gifted at this. This is the only opportunity in my life I have to be good at something. And then I really liked that it was numbers oriented, just because it was like I could say definitively I am better than I was last month or 2 months ago. Rather than like it always felt like in like soccer, it was like I was kind of a little stinker, and so I was always like my teammates let the team down when oh my god, I was the worst athlete of all time. Or like did I actually get better, or the other teams worse this season, or stuff like that. Where like I don't know, it felt very nice to have like a very, very specific number that like equated to success rather than like arbitrarily deciding like my footwork is better, where like I could just be like definitively this number represents the quality or goodness of lifter I am. And if that number is going up, I know I'm improving at this thing I'm doing every day.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially for a self-characterized angsty tween who had a deep need to be good at something. And I love that you just decided that you were going to be talented. This is the thing I'm going to be good at.
I was kind of the worst of both worlds because I feel like I was like a really depressed loser who also had like a massive ego. So like I both was terrible and hated myself, but also thought I was better than everyone. So it was a real terrible combination. But I was like, oh no, I'm just like naturally gifted. And I think while a bad thing to be that egotistical probably helps me in some extent because like Sam was like show me like Eric Lillybridge deadlifting 923 or whatever, and I'm like of course I can do that, I just have to put the work in. And I think that like weird 11-year-old vanity I think helps me in some respects.
Yeah, I mean it's gotten you here, and you do have 2 years to deadlift 900 and beat Lillybridge's number.
I'm slowly chipping there, you know. I gotta switch over to a deadlift bar so it's actually easier. But
yeah, I mean, if you strapped up, you know, I mean, just for the lulls, you know, if you strapped up and got on a deadlift bar, you could do that. Could do that in a year.
I get negative weight out of straps. I can pull less in straps.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
What's going on with that? Why do you think that?
My grip fails. So it's not like it's like my grip is just so good it's a non-factor. It's just I've never trained in straps. And so my setup is 100% dependent on like me grabbing the bar with my hands. So I'm sure if I ran a couple training blocks, I could learn how to cheat with straps. But like right now, if you're like do a max strap pull, it would be less. I couldn't pull 820 on with straps.
Wow. Yeah. Just that goes to show how important like replicating your setup has to be. Because like from a physics standpoint, as someone who knows nothing about physics,
Yeah.
maybe an anatomical standpoint, like you should be stronger with straps.
Well, especially because like if you use long straps, I just have to move the bar less far.
Yes.
So like objectively, it is a easier lift. If you're especially if you're like cheating into your fingers with some figure eights, it can
Yeah.
become like a substantially easier lift. I just like am not used to pulling at that height. I think the last time I did a deadlift in straps was 6 years ago.
Wow.
So, and like the number of deadlifts I've done in straps is probably less than 100. And the number of deadlifts I've done bare hand is thousands. So it's like
Yeah.
just the number of deadlifts done in a certain way, like the skill of doing straps, I just don't have right now. And I'm sure I could gain it, but I don't have a great reason to.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense to, unless you're going to follow Sam into strongman. And then you can address that when it gets there. Cause I bet it won't take you long to transition.
Yeah, I assume that'll be like a block or two of just figuring it out, and then I'll be good. But right now, it's just like I don't know why I would learn to do a cool gym lift and then have to go back.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. The going back would be really hard. Right.
Yeah, well, like I have one really cool inflated block on Instagram,
Yeah.
and then I have to be probably worse than I was before because I now have to relearn how to do my actual deadlifts.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So you've never had to train grip specifically. It's just from doing mixed grip on all of your deadlifts.
No, I've had to train grip for the last 2, 3 years.
Okay. Okay. You do like behind the back holds?
That's new this block. It's kind of jumped around. I've
Okay.
done a handful of things for grip. Um, Honestly, most of it is just doing grip at some point in my week outside of deadlifts. I think I got like a very long way just doing a hold at the end of my last set on deadlifts and never using straps. I think those two things alone carried me to like I don't know a grip problem until like probably like it's like mid 700s on the stiff bar. I've never been close to dropping a deadlift on the deadlift bar, but that's because it's thinner.
Yeah.
But the stiff bar I have like I've dropped pulls that I probably would have gotten otherwise. Um, so ever since I transitioned back over to the stiff bar after like 766 or whatever that pull was, I definitely the grip has had become a little bit more of a active training thing.
That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, it seems like everybody who's extremely strong and pulling without straps, grip is going to become a limiter at some point.
Yeah, I think you're just gonna run into that at some point, and it's like some people address it a lot better than others. And like I don't know why I just didn't do my grip last block. It wasn't in the program. Like so I just kind of I guess slipped one by us, and my grip started going, and I was like, oh well, that of course still needs to be in there. So it's just like actively doing it. I think if you most people are not going to be like solely limited by their grip. But it's just a matter of like once you have that problem, actively addressing it rather than just like continuously having loose grip deadlifts.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And it does, grip is a thing that seems to be very trainable, like over a short
Yeah,
time span. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I also think a lot of I'm talking about mixed grip specifically. I don't know how hook grip works. I don't hook
Yeah.
grip. I don't know. A
Sorcery.
bunch. Yeah, I don't know. I don't get the thumbs for it. The Shethar family thumbs are very very stubby. Uh, but in terms of mixed grip, a lot of people like blame skin tolerance. And I think something Sam and I have talked, or like skin toughness, like, oh, my skin just went. It wasn't even my grip, it was my skin. And Sam and I have talked about a lot where your skin going just means your grip was going because what tears your skin is the bar moving in your hands. So it's like if your hands are tearing, it's not like, oh, the skin just wasn't strong enough. It's that your grip wasn't strong enough. So the bar moved and that's what tore your hands. So I think a lot of like, oh, it was just my callus going is usually like your grip was going and thus your callus went,
Yeah,
not the
so
other
it
way around.
slipped. Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. We don't have the meat on the roster yet. Are you going to announce it once you decide?
probably not.
I
Every meet
like
I've been
that.
on, I just like I train and then I go compete and then I'll post my meet results. Uh,
That's
Part of it is
definitely chalk mode.
well, it feels like unnecessary pressure. Like if I post on Instagram, like,
Mm,
"Hey
yeah.
guys, tune in. if it goes terribly, ask me how it went. Like,
Right. Yeah.
I kind of don't want that. I'd much rather just like, if it goes well, I'll post about it. If it really doesn't, I won't.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. You're so young and at such a high level already. Do you have timeline for your career as a
Yeah,
lifter? Yeah.
generally, like Tim and I have always talked about like the goal should be 10 years from now, not next block. And so
Mm,
like trying to keep like a longer term perspective. Because like there definitely are things that I could do to like gain a lot of very quick success, but then I'd be in like a worse position afterwards.
mm.
And I would say that's part of the reason I'm drug tested, just because like spamming a bunch of drugs now would probably put me in a far worse position for towards the end or towards the peak of my career. And like I could get some very cool numbers up and get some Instagram clout out of it, but I'd probably not be in a better position. So it's like sometimes sacrificing the cool, very successful
Yeah.
block for like just setting myself up for longer term. And I've always thought like I'll probably be powerlifting into my mid to late 30s in terms of like top end numbers. Obviously, that's given staying healthy
Mm.
and all that. That's kind of always been the perspective is like trying to aim for that. And so, yeah, like I'm not in like a super huge rush to, or I try not to be in a super huge rush to like knock out arbitrary numbers because like this sounds a little bit cocky, but in my mind, I'm like, a 900-pound deadlift is inevitable. I'm going to get it done in my career unless I get like hit by a car or I
Yeah.
have
So don't rush
some
it. Yeah.
genetic limitation. And so it's like I'd much rather set myself up to hopefully surpass that. So it's like it's more like in the meantime I have to set myself up to do even more rather than like get there as fast as possible and then burn out like crazy or like have a bunch of problems because I ignore all of them to try and rush to get to a specific number that I decided.
Yeah. George Lehman sells real estate now, I think.
Yeah, they moved to Thailand
Yeah.
and had some shady dealing.
Yeah. So I mean that's that was the meteoric rise and the quick exit, I guess. But you look at guys like Dan Green, Stan Efferding, Mike T, right? As it too, those are guys who were hitting PRs into their mid and late 30s. So I think that as far as static strength, like that seems to be something that you can continue to incrementally improve. It's got a longer timeline than maybe like explosive athletic stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it diminishes a lot later. Like it's an attribute, like because it's like eye hand coordination or like like explosive stuff seems like you're not making it much past 30 usually.
Yeah.
But like especially women, there are some open women that are like actively world record relevant in their mid 40s.
Yeah.
And then also I think part of that is like if you're supplementing your natural hormones, I think you can partially get by. And usually the thing that goes is not like your muscles are suddenly start getting weaker. It's usually like you're getting older and your tendons start getting weaker. Like the thing
Yeah.
that ends a lot of long careers isn't like, oh, then they just weren't strong enough to hit another PR. It's like they weren't durable enough to make it through another training block.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's more so like the goal is to try and stay healthy for the next 15 years in the hopes to have that much more time to continue progressing. Because like injuries are kind of the thing that ends like or like is inevitable, but you need to do your best job to prevent them.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it makes sense to think in terms of how do I prevent an early and forced exit for
Yeah.
myself from the sport? So, what are your top three takeaways for a young fellow who's attempting to increase their longevity in the sport of powerlifting? What should they be doing right now?
Oh God, build your base, do a lot of hypertrophy. I think one of the number one things you can do against injuries is just have a bunch of muscle around stuff. Being overly muscular for the lift that you're doing is usually pretty safe. Start learning and taking your recovery variables seriously. I think like what you can get away with is often the standard set rather than like what's the most I can be doing. And I think on recovery, it should be like how can I best prepare for, not what's the minimum I can do and get away with my next lift.
Yeah.
Um, Take your form seriously, I guess would be the third one. Like oftentimes it'll be like trying like the priority is the next PR, but it's also like if you wait an extra block and start like fixing up your terrible brace or something, you'll be in a lot better of a position. And like that is one that I was terrible at. I definitely rushed a lot of blocks. And like
Yeah.
there's been times where I fully had to take like a step back and relearn how to do a movement because of how badly I've learned some very bad movement patterns in like the time that I've been lifting because I was so like the emphasis was to get to the next milestone or PR. So just like sometimes take a step back and learn how to lift is definitely a very, very, very big one. It feels terrible when you're like a stupid 16-year-old because you're like, I just have to keep going.
Yeah.
Someone telling you to like take a step back and learn how to lift is always like, you don't know what you're saying. But if your goal is like actually very long-term success, the earlier you learn how to like lift proficiently is going to set you up for far more success.
I think that maybe is one of the benefits of training in a way that would adhere to or that would produce 3 white lights on the platform. Because if you're truly pausing your benches and then holding them at lockout, like that's a much safer way to bench instead of kind of explosively bouncing it and fudging your pause, probably leads to less injury. Just and same thing with squats, I would think.
Yeah, I think I don't know. There are definitely some like Sam and I have talked about like there are like general principles of like what is good technique, and people will be like, this person and this person's techniques look totally different. And it's like the way that those look on different proportions, the way people do them differently are going to manifest very, very differently. But a lot of like the best lifters in the world, like there are a lot of like technical attributes that are like very, very like you could both of these people are doing things that I think that like a lot of people would benefit from because like you can't copy someone who has different leverages from you. Like if their femurs are just half the length of yours, that technique is not going to be the same. But there are still things that like a good technical squatter, you should be going for like whatever the vague like textbook squat is, but in the parameters of whatever your leverages are.
Yeah. The one exception being if you're a French IPF lifter who is a sub, 65 kilogram female. Those low bar squats with the narrow stances are sickening. Like it works for them, but it looks so wrong.
Yeah, I say that, and then also like I certainly have my own weird like technique predispositions. Like I
Yeah.
would be lying if I said there are not like elite lifters that I would look at their technique and go like, oh, that's skanky. But also
Yeah.
it's like they're successfully
Yeah.
lifting the weight at a like world class level.
Yeah.
And there's some amount of like, oh, like would they even be better if they were doing it like some arbitrary way? And I think the vanity to claim that like I could make this world champion better if they just did what I do is something I've heard a lot and is always very, very silly. But also
Yeah.
sometimes I think like training really hard, having a good program, and having incredible genetics will sometimes let you get away with like maybe that's not the most optimal technique.
The idea of not just recovering enough to get through the session, but actually trying to max out recovery, like recovery maxing, it makes so much sense. But you do see so many people who are like 3 hours sleep, but I got through the session, brother, and it's like
Yeah.
you're sniffing ammonia to hit like something that was supposed to be like an RPE 7 tempo squat. But because you slept 3 hours and you ate shittily, now suddenly it's like this hugely taxing thing to get through.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge like my life, due to a lot of choices I've made, but also due to some fortunate circumstances, is very much so set up in a way that is very optimal for recovery. Like my outside of life stressors are insanely low.
Yeah.
So it's like that is a great benefit to like, oh, just have optimal recovery. Just wake up whenever you want to because your job has flexible hours. Is like kind of unproductive advice, and I'm like not applicable to most people. But I think it's still like you should be doing the most for recovery within the framework of whatever your life demands are. Where it's like if you have 3 kids and work a manual labor job, it's like, dude, that's crazy. Major respect. I'm not gonna be like, you need to get 10 hours of sleep every night and never miss a meal. Where it's like your life demands are far greater than mine. And to say that would be wildly hypocritical, but it's still like if your goal is to be very good at lifting weights or any performance thing, taking that seriously within like whatever the parameters or restraints of your life are, where it's like, yeah, maybe sometimes you do miss a meal, but then you can add a couple extra eggs to your next meal, or like, just making sure you can like get to bed before a big session, like recover, like doing as much as you can, not just the bare minimum. I think would go a long way. And like sometimes I'm like, oh, this block went fine, even though I had slightly dubious recovery variables, so it's fine. And it's like that's just setting yourself up for, oh, in 2 blocks from now, I tweaked something. What are the odds? Like,
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. The idea that just putting the session in the logbook is enough is, I mean, that's the starting point. But like you said, the nutrition, which is a part of the recovery, and the recovery is what's going to help you absorb it, I guess.
yeah, something about like it's not just what you put in the logbook has been something I've like been putting a lot of thought into lately. Where like the like specific intentions of a session matter a lot, especially when it's like you're in a volume phase. If you are just checking off the numbers versus actively trying to improve your technique, the lifter you are at the end can be pretty significantly different. Or like, oh, I did my set of 8 to 12 on belt squats or whatever. Where it's like realistically, I probably could have done 17 reps if I really wanted to dig deep for it. And it's
Yeah.
like, but I checked off that box. But the difference of like caliber of like the amount of hypertrophy you're going to gain over the course of a year between like, oh, I just did whatever the program said versus like I did like what the intent of the program was, which is like I put in a hard set of this thing. Like I actively worked very hard on this one, or like I tried to actively improve my technique. Because I would say I kind of slumped into a little bit of box checking like 2 blocks ago, where I was just like, oh, I did my numbers, I went and I did the program, I'm good. And like I wasn't actively thinking about the session. And I think that's a really, really big one, is like making like the active intent. It feels weird. It's like two people who are doing roughly the exact same program, and one of them succeeds far more than the other. And I think the automatic assumption is like that person has better genetics. And like oftentimes that is what it is. But also I think the like intensity and like active participant in doing your training is going to lead to very, very different results. And I've like just consistently observed that in my own training.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You should never finish a set of belt squats and want to immediately check your phone. Like, yeah, 30 seconds later after you get your breath. But if it was actually a productive set of belt squats or leg press or whatever, you're going to have to kind of gather yourself for a moment before exiting the belt, and even navigating like unclipping the belt after a hard set of belt squats is actually really difficult and uncomfortable, at least for me. Like, because I've been so, my quads are so pumped, and it's like I'm kind of half squatting here.
I was gonna say, like, if I'm not actively trying to escape the leg machine, then I probably didn't actively like work that hard. Like, I've got a little bit of like I've gotten some jokes at the gym. If I'm doing like a really hard leg extension set, I'm basically like diving out of it. Like it looks
Yeah.
very stupid and weird of me, but it's like I desperately want anything more than like I need to not have my leg in a bent position right now. Like,
Oh man, yeah.
because I'll do like some like sets like pretty hard sets of 30, and like, whew, I am diving out of that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the leg extension is definitely one where you do not want to stay in that position, once
Oh
your
yeah.
once your leg's pumped. Yeah, miserable. So do your leg extensions, listeners. Don't neglect them.
I I've got a little bit of a love for leg extensions also, purely just because it's like if you're doing like a high rep, it always feels like my mind fails first.
Yeah.
Like because if I'm like 31 reps deep and it's like you truly put a gun to my head, I always can do one more.
Yeah.
And it's like that is so like appeal. It's because it's like I used to do a lot of like hard AMRAPs on like squats and deadlifts, and like that probably wasn't the smartest training decision. But luckily I got to where I am now and have improved my training. But there's still some amount of like meathead, like Pete Rubish basement angst lord
Yeah.
aspect of me that still just wants to go like turn my brain off, go hard. And as I've gotten better at lifting, it's like the amount of things that I can do that in and like feel like I'm not just like doing a bad job of my training has gotten less and less. Where like if I just did a hard like do as many as possible on squats, I would be doing a terrible job of my program. And then it's like if I did that on my even my like stiff legs, it's like I would just do a worse job of doing them well, and I would doing a worse job of my program. But leg extensions, like I'm locked in that position. It's a true one joint isolation. I kind of can just like, as long as I'm making sure the range of motion is right, it truly just comes down to like blood and guts. And that sounds very angsty for what is a light leg accessory, but I do like the fact that it's like truly I always lose to the weights because of my mind. And it just like feels like I genuinely can just like push myself harder every week.
Yeah, you need effective reps for the mindset, for sure. People neglect that, you know. You need to get to a place where you are like Vincent Law from Ergo Proxy, which is a greatly underrated anime, but he's basically an angst lord who transforms into a god being. So typical
Yeah,
anime stuff. Yeah.
I think there's something to be said. Like, I don't know if it's actively like the most productive choice, but something about being like a little bit of like a try hard angst lord. Like, there's some like later, like you kind of need to learn how to work hard first. And some people are just athletes that like did suicides and just like learned how to work hard. I was not that person. So it's like when I started lifting weights, I truly don't think I tried hard at like anything in my life. And so like learning how to like actively like
Yeah.
push past discomfort, I kind of had to like idealize or like make cool to myself in some way. And like, oh my God, it feels very hipstery. I was watching a lot of anime in middle school, and I'd be lying if I said it was not like, dude, I'm Goku right now. And like, I'd be lying if I said that it was not like part of like a weird
Of course.
elementary explanation.
Yeah.
And it's like you kind of do just need to like learn how to like tolerate or hopefully like seek some amount of like pride or joy from experiencing that discomfort. And it's funny because now I like don't get to do this often because it's like doing hard AMRAPs is actively unproductive for most of my training.
Yeah.
But like some of those, I just kind of have to apply that to like some accessories where it's like, as long as I'm doing my belt squat correctly, I can go pretty hard. And it's like this weird itch of like I really need to like just blood and guts go for it, like go absolutely nuclear. And it's like when you're 15 reps deep into a set of belt squats, it's like that I no longer want that. I no longer am like I need to die for this. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, yeah. You rapidly lose that urge once the
Yeah.
pain hits. Yeah, and that's when you gotta lean into the Doomslayer music, I guess.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's like, oh, I want to do like a really sick set of deadlifts. And then it's like, well, try and do an extra 4 reps on your set of tricep extensions. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, pushdowns are definitely something that you can safely make yourself miserable with.
oh yeah. And I think that's kind of like I've got like a love for emotions and I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna hurt myself on this. So it
Yeah.
truly I can just go like stupid, like play a Doom OST and then just like try and destroy my arms. Like that's always like nice that like I can itch a little bit of my like bro need to just go absolutely nuclear and then also still be doing like productive strength training. Like
Yeah, so what you actually want to do is listen to Shania Twain when you're doing your compounds, when you're squatting, benching, and deadlifting, but then the Doomslayer comes on when you're doing the leg extensions. That makes sense.
dude, I kind of peak my music. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Like depending on the like accessory and the intensity and the phase of my blog, I'm listening to different music. I
Yeah.
very because at the end I'm listening to basically just like someone screaming over a trap beat. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Like the Large Lads intro. That makes sense.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And for like early vlog, it's like there's gotta be more focus and stuff, and like and then accessories. Yeah, no, I'm just playing some. I listen to the Dorian Yates Blood and Guts audio a lot. That's a big
Oh,
one.
that's amazing. Yeah, that's a great idea.
The number of times I've heard For the Mass
Yeah.
while doing like belt squats or whatever is hundreds.
Yeah, I listen. There's a bunch of compilations of like people plagiarizing Miyamoto Musashi's Book of Five Rings, but making it sound cooler by like sort of paraphrasing. And there's just this dude who reads it in this intense tenor, and there's like this classical music behind it. And that shit'll bring me to tears. Like I'll be driving to a squat session with that on at 5 a.m. and I'll just be like, yes,
That
But
I that's such a real part of like the gym. Like
yeah.
it feels so stupid. Like I'll sometimes just like have like a out of body experience. Like, bro, you're so stupid. What are you doing? Like I'll sometimes like driving to a session. I'll be like in my car, I'm like, this is my destiny. Like this is all I was made for. Like what am I doing.
But it's important to have that outlet to achieve that feeling. We all have a melodramatic streak, and it's we shouldn't be ashamed of it. We just need to use it in the right context, you know. And as long as you keep that in your head, mostly, I think it's healthy.
Yeah, I think that's definitely like a good note. Is like you don't need to always be talking about it for sure, but like I would be lying if like I've got some dweeb like this is my purpose.
That's good. That's good. You know, and you have a lot more justification than 99.99% of people who are lifting to have that outlook when you're going to the gym.
Well, I think it's less so reflective of like your strength level, even though it feels a lot more like justified and correct to have that outlook if you're doing a 900-pound squat or whatever than someone driving to do 365. But also, like, I don't know, I've known some pretty strong people that I'm like, if you told me like this is your life, I would be like, dude, no, you're lying. It's like there are some people who can get away with a lot of stuff, but like, when I was like 14, like taking the bus to the YMCA, truly that was my whole day. Like even if I was pretty weak at the time, it's like, if someone's like truly like I can just tell that they're like this is all they're focusing on, like they're not talking to people at the gym, like they've been eating their meals and like that's their whole day. Absolutely, just get some angsty music going and go hard. I don't know. I I think it's more in proportionate to like how actively serious you're taking your training, or like how much it actually means to you. Because like someone being like, oh yeah, like this is my destiny, and like if I know they're skipping accessories, I hate that person.
Yeah, if you're not checking all the boxes, you're not qualified to say that. But as long as you're doing everything that you can to progress, that's what justifies it.
Yeah, and like think that in your head. You don't need to be posting on Instagram about it, but like you could just be like in your head, be like, this is what I was made for.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I squatted 500 about a month ago for the first time. And I also was graduating with my PhD. And the PhD that took 7 years was much less meaningful to me than hitting a weight that like most high school linebackers do by the time they're sophomores on squat. Just because that was what was more exciting to me. And it felt like more of a, I don't know, more of a journey or something.
No, dude, hell yeah. I assume your depth was a little bit better than most high school linebackers.
Yes, definitely. The depth I can claim is very legitimate. So,
but yeah, like a lot of my like most meaningful lifts are not just like what's the heaviest one I've hit. It's like I don't know, whatever like arbitrary value or weight I've put into that, like what it feels like I've like put in to get to that point.
Yeah.
Because like there's like I don't know, my first 500-pound squat was it sounds stupid, one of the better days of my life. Like I remember that being like the most like one of the what feels like one of the best accomplishments. And it's like, I've progressed past that, but it's like I don't know. I think people having lifts that they're proud of, it's like, it's the amount of work that you put in. I don't really care what the number on the bar is.
Yeah.
Like, we're all on the same journey and just at different points. Like who really cares? Like if you're a loser in a jerk hitting 700, I don't really care.
Yeah.
But if you're someone who I've seen work very, very hard and like is a cool dude and like has put a lot of effort into getting a 400-pound deadlifts, I'm gonna be the first person cheering. Like
Totally. And for you on that 500-pound squat day, you just got on the bus and you went home to do your 9th grade science homework, because I'm sure you were about 14 years old.
Well, okay, Sam actually drove me because
okay, that's good.
Yeah, it was the previous block on Christmas Eve. I went for my first 500-pound squat, and it absolutely stapled me, like folded me to the ground, and we didn't have catches, so it like skinned the back of my head. And I remember like I went up to Christmas like with tears in my eyes, like okay, like, bleeding out of the back of my head, so depressed. And then it was like the next block, Sam went to one of the gyms in Seattle, and he had a bunch of his college friends there. And so it was like, I'm like a 14 year, probably 14, 15 year olds, probably 15. I don't know, something like that. 15. I was 15. Getting to hang out with like my older brother who's in college and his college friends, and like I get to hit my first 500-pound squat in front of them. Like that felt crazy cool because like you're like, oh my god, these are like the older dudes. I'm like one of the boys.
Yeah. Yeah, to do it in front of older lifters, your older brother's friends, that definitely is the cherry on top.
Yeah, I think a lot of like my better lifting memories. It feels like I often tell myself like, oh, I'm like a lone wolf. Like powerlifting is a solo sport, but a lot of my like actual best lifting memories are like when I'm around people
Totally.
that like, I respect, or like like I'm getting hyped up and like I'm with Sam or whatever. Like a lot of them like are
Yeah.
it's the friends you made along the way.
I was waiting for it. I was gonna prompt you if you did.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, that one of the best parts about that 822, that clip of your deadlift, is as soon as you get it, Sam's just like sitting in the chair like this, and he just holds out his fist and waits for you to come over. I mean, that's the message, man. The brotherhood, the literal brotherhood.
Yeah, it is weird because pre-lifting, I don't know if you've mentioned on large lads, I hated Sam. I really didn't like him, and it was completely for no reason.
Wow.
But
So just unfounded spite.
oh yeah, big time. Well, I think part of it was I was a little angsty teen, and
Uh-huh.
Sam, like I was like failing like middle school somehow because I was a little kid. And like Sam was like good at sports and generally passing, and so like I just had this like weird hate for him.
Uh-huh.
Completely unfounded.
Yeah.
Sam and I lived in the same room for the first, I guess, like God, 14 years of my life,
Uh,
and there was a long time that we'd never talked.
wow.
Like, I
Yeah.
just literally did not talk. Like we didn't like like
Yeah.
Sam was now probably my best friend. Like it's like Sam
Yeah.
is very much so like a life mentor and like probably my best friend and like one of the most important people in my life that I've gained a lot of experience and life advice from. Pre 14, like 13, 14, like we were not talking. Like he was just like some dude that I happened to live with that I
Yeah.
decided I hated. Like
It's very funny that you had this like entirely one-sided interior thing built up against him.
I think I just hated like a lot of the world, and that just kind of resulted in lashing
Yeah.
out whatever was near me. But yeah, no, I definitely told Sam before. They're like, dude, I kind of fucking
Yeah.
hated you, and he's like, why? We never talked.
That's great.
He's like, you had no reason to because we'd literally never spoken. I was like, I
Yeah.
don't know, man. I just decided that you suck. And he was like,
Yeah.
okay, that's crazy.
Hey man, even the lone wolf likes to have its belly scratched.
Dude, yeah, no, I definitely, I was not a cool dude for sure.
Yeah.
I no one in middle school was cool, but I was somehow like an especially shitty middle school.
Cool. I think everyone feels that way about themselves in middle school. That yeah, well, even afterwards, like yeah, everybody was lame in middle school, but I was the lamest.
Yeah, no, I absolutely feel that way,
Yeah.
100%. And I think I'm the one who's actually correct.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You're the one person who's legitimate in their claim.
Yeah, everyone else is rounding up. I was the
Yeah.
real bad one.
Strong statement, to end the pod. Max is the only middle schooler who was actually the lamest.
I think I might have been the definitively lamest middle schooler maybe ever.
Lamest middle schooler to strongest little brother in Montana. What an arc.
What a brutal end to that. I have to bring it back. I just had a podcast where ranting like I used to hate my brother.
Well, hey man, I'm excited to continue keeping up with the training. I eagerly await the large lads. I'm up Monday morning at 4:30, and I'm opening YouTube. I'm looking for it just in case.
See, they normally get posted Tuesdays just because
Yeah.
we record them Monday and then Sam usually edits and posts them in the middle of the night on Monday.
Oh, well, that explains why I'm always disappointed. I felt like early on you were doing Sundays, and then like it would be released Monday, maybe.
It's bounced around a good
Yeah.
bit just because my girlfriend's schedule kind of changes a fair
Okay.
amount.
Yeah.
And so it's like we were doing them Sundays and posting them Sunday night, and then it changed to doing it Monday and then posting it Tuesday. So it has changed. You're correct.
Okay, but now I know when to actually be impatient, so that's good.
Tuesdays for all of our loyal large lads fans.
That's right.
Right
Very
now,
good.
Tuesdays.
Well, all right, man. It was great talking with you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, man.